because to play the Tetris, you must draft the cards to catch the fish, to lure the cats, to cover the rats.
I mean, that's a pretty good summary of the game, though.
Greetings and salutations, board game fans. The Dice Pirates are back. This is episode 42. We have a little bit of a grab bag episode. We're going to be talking about a couple different games. We're going to be talking about Hive, Star Wars Pandemic. Just going to get some stuff that we've been playing recently in there. Of course, I am joined, as always, by Matt and Aaron. How are you guys doing?
Ahoy, hoy.
Yeah. What? Oh, wait, are we started? Sorry, I was playing... Sorry, I'm playing Marvel Snap. Like right now.
Yes, Matt's newest absolute obsession. In fact, I know you wanted to talk about this in a soapbox.
I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted, Ian. I can stop anytime. But I'm just gonna stop
Why
later.
don't you stop right now?
I'm gonna stop later, but I can do it anytime. But I'm choosing to not do it now. Do you see how that works?
The real power is choosing not to stop because it's a choice.
Yeah, right, you know what? I'm gonna stop. Just for the recording. I'll put it down.
So you've been playing a lot of that. Why do you like it so much? I played it a little bit. I haven't gotten as sucked in as you have. So tell me a little bit about it. What's really grabbed you?
Oh man. Okay. So I was seeing everybody and their mama tweeting and commenting about it in like Gamer World on the various social medias. And I decided last weekend I was on a bit of a road trip and wasn't driving, and I had a moment and I was like, you know what, I'm going to download this. I can't decide if it was the best or worst thing I've ever done recently. But I thought it would be fun to talk about on the show because it is a pretty good board game, tabletop-esque experience. If you've not played it, I'll give a quick synopsis of the game. I mean, it's essentially an area control card-driven area control game. There are 3 zones in the center of the playing area, and you play cards on your turn that represent various Marvel characters, villains, heroes, all with a different power value. And the total cumulative power value at the location, if you have the most, you win that location at the end of the game. And if you win 2 out of the 3 locations, you win the whole match. It's that simple. Can you get the most power into at least 2 of the 3 areas? Where it gets really interesting is the various combinations of powers on your cards and powers on the location. So obviously, different characters you play will do unique and interesting things. Iron Man will double the amount of power at any location when you play him. Mr. Fantastic stretches out his little stretchy arms and adds power to the 2 adjacent locations next to wherever you put him, and so on and so forth. So there's all this like fun card play and strategy that comes into the heroes. But then like further mixing it up is that each location has weird powers that can totally change your strategy. For instance, Shuri's laboratory might add power to any card that's played there, whereas if you play on another location, it might add a rock into your deck that's like a useless card that you can't, and so on. There's just all kinds of stuff. There's too many to even like rattle off. The worst one actually like destroys all your characters on one side if you are losing at a certain like point in the game. So it's just really fun, really asymmetrical, really keeps you on your toes because you don't know what these locations are until they're slowly revealed over the first 3 rounds. So the whole game on turn 3 can get turned on its head when like the 3rd location is revealed and it's totally different than what you expect. It's just really good, man. I really like it. The things that I have thought about over the past few days of playing it are that I would desperately prefer to play this around the tabletop where it was not completely saturated by all the mobile game addiction spiral trappings that that really kind of are starting to bum me out. And in all seriousness, I probably am going to stop playing the game altogether now that I've kind of feel like I've gotten my feel of it. I just hate everything about the mobile game experience.
It is, and this is such a milquetoast stance to take. It's not the worst monetization scheme in a mobile game, Like
No.
you can't like if
Oh,
there's
you're really setting the bar super high right now.
Yeah.
like as an example,
Wow. I
if
mean, not the
there's
worst. That's incredible.
if there's
Yeah.
a specific card that you want, you can't just buy that card. You have to earn that card by, climbing your collection level and season, battle passes and stuff like that. The monetization it is bad because like while you can't directly just buy a card, you can buy the resources that you need to upgrade your cards to then increase your collection level in order to unlock that other card that you want. So
Right.
it is kind of roundabout, but something that you were talking about, I really like how they how the little nods in it's what am I trying to say? I like how there are some locations and some characters that work really well together. For example, one of the cards you can play is Namor or Namor from the comics, depending on what movie.
If you've seen the movie recently.
And he gets like +5 strength if he's your only card at one of
Yes.
the locations. And one of the locations is his home, Atlantis. And Atlantis' ability is if you only have one card there, it gets +5 power. So if you put him in his home world, his power is even further increased, which is just it's the things that work well together, and I like to see that. I also, the presentation of it, just the video and the audio overall, is so slick. Like when you first start the game, like the most powerful card you have access to is the Hulk. It has 12 power and it doesn't do anything, but it has 12 power. That's like twice any other card that you have access to at that point. And when you play it onto the board, it doesn't just like flip over. It flips over and then it jumps up in the air and then it slams back into the table. There's a little crater that you can see around it, and everything else like jumps up and wiggles around like from a shockwave. And like almost every character card has some little animation that it does and that only it does.
It's full of little flourishes like that make it very thematic and fun. But yeah, I mean, for tabletop fans, why should you look at this game? It has an incredibly clever hook to me around the idea of mixing like card play and area control, and the way there's very satisfying strategies that emerge, the synergy between various cards and the locations. The locations are the secret sauce that I think makes it awesome. You expect that a card game has card powers that interact, and some cards work really well together, and you could create synergy. I mean, that's the basic dynamic of a collectible card game since Magic the Gathering basically invented the format. But these location powers are what create this cool X factor, because you can't just have like a deck that is guaranteed to win every time, because it may be completely hosed by some dynamics unique to the locations that came out in that particular match. So you're always thinking on your feet, like, okay, I've got to completely revamp my strategy, and you need to bake in some versatility into building the decks. So it's a really fun. There's just when you stumble into a great synergy in a particular match between your deck and the locations that came out, something awesome happens. It's really cool. Like you play Iron Man and it doubles the power of all the heroes at that location, and then the location itself has a doubling effect and you get an even more power. Chef's kiss. It's really, really good. But it also means that a round can go completely sideways in ways that you didn't expect. Never experienced that in a card-driven game. It's awesome. The other couple of things, and I'll quit talking about it because I didn't really intend to review it, but it's worth noting that the matches are super short. They're 6 rounds. So they like 5 to 8 minutes. So, it's perfect pick up and play game. And the decks are really small. So I think there's only like 12, 15 cards in a deck, something like that. Like it's So it makes it easy to build a deck is basically what I'm saying. You can quickly start experimenting. Once you build up a little collection of cards in there, you can quickly start experimenting with, I'm just going to slap together 14 cards and see how that does. So everything about the game is streamlined and fast and easy and accessible. The things I hate about it, though, then I'll shut up, is just how I can feel it playing on the serotonin uptake inhibitors or whatever, like the dopamine in my brain constantly with this design. It is masterfully designed to constantly be giving you little stimulated rewards. Like you finish the match and you win, and it doesn't just say you won. Like the screen explodes in light and color, and your phone vibrates a little bit. Victory, bzzz. And then you go into this drawn out rewards animation screen. Like the cards upgrade. They don't just like unlock. They like explode, and like the characters change, and there's all of this like haptic feedback too. Like when you put stuff down, the phone like buzzes and things unlock, and then you go back to the main screen after the match, and there's meters going up. You see yourself. It's like, oh, my collection level's going up, but then also my season rank went up, and then this went up, and then if I play just 5 more minutes, I'll cross this threshold, and then this thing will unlock, and then when I click on it, it'll explode like candy everywhere all over the screen, and you can kind of feel your brain getting like sucked into this cycle of like, let me play like 2 more. And I hate that stuff. I really, really do. So I want somebody to just full scale copy the gameplay mechanics of Marvel Snap and turn it into a tabletop game, because it's a great game, but I don't want to be like having my brain rewired to want to keep reaching for my phone. So I think it's a great game. I think it's a really fun game that tabletop people should play. But if you are at all have a tendency toward like addiction and like you're already struggle with like your phone, I tread cautiously. It does have very light monetization, but you could easily get sucked into buying the stupid season pass very fast. So Marvel Snap, really brilliant game, has all the worst things of modern mobile gaming all baked into it.
Love it. All right, everyone, that's our full review of Marvel Snap. Thank you. That's the episode. That's all we did.
Yeah, that's all we're gonna do today.
That's what we're doing. We're actually going to jump in. We're going to do a quick episode of Bitter Board Gamers. Of course, I'm going to read out some 1-star reviews. You guys are going to try and guess what game I'm talking about. We were going to do this last week, but Matt had a surprise game for us, so I'm bringing it in now. Are you guys ready? You guys excited?
I'm always ready.
Okay, first game. I usually love drafting, but here it's just painful. This game makes me puke, literally. Also, don't buy a used game from this guy. Apparently,
right?
That would be a bad idea.
This
makes me puke.
These cards are sticky.
Literally.
This game makes me puke literally. It's a drafting game that makes you puke.
It's a drafting game.
From like anxiety or because the card art is gross? Is there a gross game?
Honestly. Who knows? I don't know. I'm going to give you another small one that you probably won't get, but it might help. Small, very, very slight hint.
Yeah.
Any game that doesn't come with an organizer is an automatic 1. Candyland is like $10 and has an insert. What's your excuse?
A card drafting game that does not have an organizer,
no organizer
will make you puke.
That's a lot of them. Does Seven Wonders have an organizer? I'm just going to say Seven Wonders. It's the first drafting game that pops in my head.
Not Seven Wonders.
Is it Blood Rage? Does Blood Rage have an organizer?
It is not Blood Rage. Does Blood Rage have an organizer? I thought Blood Rage had an organizer.
It's probably got like a crappy one.
It's got one for the minis, but I don't know about the cards.
Yeah.
There's technically room that the cards can go in, but they will not stay there.
All right. You guys want a... my next reviews are probably going to give it away. Oh, well, okay, so... I'll give you guys an option. You got two very short reviews that will probably give it away, and then there's a very, very long review where this guy wrote a full essay. Do you want to hear snippets of that?
I want to hear snippets of the essay. I want to hear snippets of the essay.
All right, we're going to start in. All right, this game is so bad. And also, if you guys know what it is during, call it out as I'm reading, because I'm sure you'll figure it out at some point.
Okay.
This game is so bad that I have trouble calling it a game. It is a collection of loosely related, poorly explained rules with an unrelated theme wafting in their general direction. First, the card drafting mechanic at the core of the game is horrible. I witnessed true misery as my family realized they had to repeat the process of card drawing, exchanging, and then buying to start each turn. The misery continued through all
This is Isle of Cats.
It's Isle of Cats.
This is 100% Isle of Cats.
Oh.
You know what? I'm kind of I've played Isle of Cats a second time, and I'm coming towards this person's viewpoint on it a little bit. I know we're talking about doing an Isle of Cats episode where we break it down, but I've got complicated feelings about Isle of Cats. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it's we're definitely gonna do a review of this one because I played it a bit with my wife. We enjoy it, but I do have thoughts about it. I'm gonna continue a few more snippets from this. Then the rest of the turn is boring. The whole game is boring. It's just the most slow-moving game of Tetris-based point salad you've ever played. Because to play the Tetris, you must draft the cards to catch the fish, to lure the cats, to cover the rats.
I mean, that's a pretty good summary of the game, though.
The pretty good summary.
Yeah,
and this
that's
bad
fair.
guy is going to destroy the world, but only so the game ends eventually. This is actually the one on-theme part of the game because midway through each turn you are wishing for a sudden apocalypse to consume the entire Earth, and you with it.
That's fantastic.
Finally, at the end, people win purely for having lucked into drawing one of the very few mega useful cards from the monolithic pile of cards. There is no equalization. What a poorly conceived game from top to bottom. It shows that some people will go for anything if it's a big enough salad of points with enough inane rules and random bits of paper flotsam.
Okay, that's maybe a little more hate than I would spew toward that game, but there's some strong guys making some strong points. That's all I'm saying. He's making some valid points.
It's probably one of the best written and well thought out like 1-star reviews that I think I've seen, especially in Bitterboard.
As a connoisseur of 1-star reviews, you've read a lot of 1-star BGG reviews. That's you know your stuff.
I've probably read more 1-star reviews than the average bear at this point.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next game because how are we gonna top that? And here is your first review. This game is so dumb. There is no intellect and no skill other than lying your face off and calling bluffs. Not my cup of tea. I prefer strategy and real skill. It took 10 to 15 minutes to learn, and each round was over in 1 to 2 minutes. Dumb, dumb, dumb.
Is it Sheriff of Nottingham?
That's exactly what I thought.
It's not Sheriff of Nottingham. It's not Sheriff of Nottingham, but you're on the right track.
I mean, it can't be Werewolf because Werewolf is never over that quickly.
No.
That's true.
It takes the whole.
Is it Coup?
It is Coup.
There we go. Look at that.
I didn't even have to give you a second review. Wow.
All thing I know about Coup is it's like faster than most deception games.
Yeah, Coup tends to be a little bit quicker, and but I think there's a place for that. I mean, I kind of like not spending a ton of time on each round.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these like deception like party games are like big events. They take a while. You got to get up for it. This is the event of the evening is to play like the Resistance or whatever. Like this is what we're doing tonight. But Coup is like we can knock that out in a game night. I love that they scaled down the deception party game into something smaller and a little faster.
Yeah, it is definitely like interesting in its position within like secret role games, because I mean, yeah, you can play Avalon, you can play Resistance, you can play Secret Hitler. I mean, there's all Werewolf. There's a whole just spectrum of secret role games. So Coup holds an interesting place because it is. You wonder if maybe the part of the reason that it's so high is just because of when it came out and it managed to get hold of an area. Does it deserve that space?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to do an episode on secret role games sometime.
That would be cool. Hidden role games. Those are fun. I wanted it to be Sidereal Confluence again, just to keep bringing that game up.
Just to make Aaron mad.
Yeah.
That's all we want to do. All right, so that's Bitterboard Gamers. We're going to go ahead and move on to our main discussion. We're going to be right back in just a second.
Alrighty, and welcome back to the Dice Pirates, where we're going to go ahead and dive into our main topic this week, which is going to be a Dice Pirates doubleheader, not a tripleheader, doubleheader. We're going to talk about two board games today, two games that we've been playing recently and think are pretty swell. I'm going to be bringing you some thoughts, some feelings about Star Wars, The Clone Wars, a pandemic system game, and Ian is going to have some words about Hive, the classic tile-laying game of bugs and excitement. More to come on that. So, what do we want to start out with, guys? Bugs or Jedi?
I'll start out with Hive because it's a nice simple one to start with. I think I don't have either of you guys played Hive actually. I'm
I
actually
have
not sure.
not, and it's actually been on my radar for a number of years because Quentin Smith, patron saint of modern board gaming at Shut Up and Sit Down, is a Hive fan and did a review of the game some years ago that made it look really fun and cool. And I've always wanted to pick it up and play it, and I just have never done it. So it's been on my bucket list for a while. So I'm excited to hear what you think about it.
I have played Hive, and I am just far too smooth brained for that game because it's one of those like perfect information. You know exactly what can and can't happen at any moment, and
Yeah.
I'm not. I need a deck of cards. I need some dice rolling. I need chance in order to give me an opportunity to win. If it's just strategy and skill, there's no way.
Yeah. So Hive is like it's like you said a perfect information game. It is a two-player game where each person receives a bunch of different tiles, and each tile has a bug on it. There's several different types of bugs. There's a couple like duplicates, and as you start off the game, you're going to start putting some of your tokens into the middle, and eventually you have to put out your B token, which is essentially kind of like your king in a way, and you have to protect that from being surrounded. And if at any point that one specific tile is surrounded on all sides, you lose the game. And that's it. That's the entire basis to the game, is that you can't let it be surrounded, and each specific bug has a different way of moving. Some move a certain number of spaces. Some can move as far as they want, as long as they are following the exterior of the hive that you're building as you connect everything together. Some will jump over the pieces that are currently on the board. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can move, and each one is unique in the way that it approaches, and so you have to be thinking about that. I had heard about this. I really didn't know much about it, but I decided to pick it up because our local game store had a sale on a bunch of games for Halloween, and so I picked up the Pocket Edition specifically so that my wife and I could bring it on trips and we could play it in a very limited space, which actually, and I'll touch on this again later, is one of the major upsides, is it's really good in terms of table space. So the game is, I think, it's really good because you start out and you have to learn, of course, how the bugs move and stuff like that. But it feels very, very simple at the start. You bring it up and you're like, oh, okay, okay, I get this. The grasshopper jumps over things. The beetle's going to jump up on other bugs and move around. And so long as everything stays connected, I can't pick up something and have two different parts of the board game. I can't have tiles not touching. So like, there are small rules to understand, but in generally it's pretty simple to get. And then all of a sudden, as you start playing, you start to connect the dots in your mind, and you're like, oh, but this guy, because he can jump, he doesn't have to. He can be stuck in the middle. Or what if I start running, my B token, my king token towards theirs? How is that going to change the game? We got into situations, my wife and I, where I was within 1-2 moves of finishing her off. I was gonna win, and then I couldn't finish it off. I couldn't convert. She made enough moves where she, all of a sudden, instead of playing defensively, she turned it on me, and she started going towards my B. And in the process of me trying to defend and keep my B from being surrounded, I had to move tokens away from hers, and I became so weak by the end that actually I then ended up losing. So it's one of those games that, and Matt, I'd love to play this with you at some point. Maybe we can pick it up on, play it on BGA or something.
Yeah.
There is so much depth in this very simple little game that you can play it and play it and play it and still be learning things. I genuinely, I honestly think that this is one of those games, like, if it had been developed, if this, I think, is very much in the same vein as something like, chess or checkers or Go, things like that. It has the same simplicity of mechanics, but the same depth of understanding that I think there's a lot to love about this one.
It really is. I mean, it is bug chess. Like, it is that same. There's a very simple rule set. Pieces can only do one or two specific things. You don't need to learn, oh, well, if this guy is surrounded, like, there's no additional stuff beyond this piece can do this specific move. And there's only, a handful of pieces in the game, but it is really that trying to figure out how to best exploit all of your options at all times. It becomes a game. It can very quickly become a game where you stop trying to necessarily protect your queen, but force the other person to have to protect theirs. And that back and forth of like having to swap between playing very, very aggressively to almost immediately having to start playing very, very defensively, it scratches my brain in ways that are both exciting and also painful.
And the things that I really, really like about this are, of course, like I said, there's a lot of depth to it. You can really kind of dig in and really, explore the game and really think about it. But you also don't have to. I mean, the nice thing is it is simple enough that you can just learn it and play. And as you, play with the same person, you're eventually going to discover things. But you can still enjoy it without getting too sweaty about how you play. And as I mentioned earlier, it is really respectful of the table space. There is no board, there's no cards, at least like within the Pocket Edition, which is the one I picked up. And all you're playing with are tiles.
Mm-hmm.
So the Pocket Edition itself doesn't even come with a box; it comes with a bag that you have all your tiles in. And so you pull your tiles out, you put them on the whatever surface you have, and you just go ahead and play. You could probably play this on a airport, on an airplane, fold down table tray if you wanted to. It's that respectful of your space, and I think that's really, for something this interesting, I really like that you do have a game that actually is able to be so small, because there's not a lot of games that you can condense into that small of an area.
I think that that's true of the base, like the original Hive as well, that it's just tiles, there's no board. It's always been sort of famously a game you can dump out on the floor and play pretty much anywhere. I mean, I think even base Hive is almost kind of a very portable, like travel friendly game anyway. So it's kind of cool that they've even like scaled it down even more and made it like truly pocket size so you can get it around. But I've always thought that this game was intriguing, a really cool evolution of that long tradition of like movement logic puzzle games, from like Go to chess to checkers to Nine Men's Morris that I talked about like 2 or 3 episodes back. Like, this feels like a modern reinterpretation of all of that, where it's like within a framework of certain like movement rules, can you achieve a win state? Those are timeless like ways to play a game, and it feels like this game could truly be like an enduring classic. But I've always wondered, does like the bug theme hold it back a little bit? Like, do people like pass over this on the shelf because it's like a game about bugs? It's like, I don't know, but it's actually a really cool game. If you reskin this with like, I don't know, knights and stuff, like, would people, I don't know, would it look more classy, to like the average consumer?
Maybe. I mean, I think it's really nice. I like that it doesn't try to, I mean, it's really just that there's bugs on the tokens themselves, which in some ways kind of, I don't know, helps for the theme, because it makes some of them logical.
Yeah.
In some ways, the way they move, but also, I mean, I don't know. It is a little pretty. Like, it's kind of nice to look at.
I like it.
It's a very simplistic looking theme, and I don't think it necessarily hurts it so much.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this is one to consider if you're thinking about getting a board game for Christmas. You're looking at gifts and stuff like that. You can find it for $30 to $40. It's at most places. I think it's a worthwhile one to jump in with somebody at Christmas and just play a bunch of quick rounds. It's a really, really surprising little gem that I was very happy to find.
That's awesome. Yeah, it feels like it's a game I wish that you had played, or we had played back when we did our Gateway Games episode, many months ago. Because this is like, if you're trying to break out of like the traditional family games into like something a little deeper, this is a good Anybody can sit down and play this if they're at all familiar with the basic concepts of chess, but it's like taking it in a different direction. So I'm very curious.
Absolutely.
I would love to play this. I'm sure this is on Board Game Arena.
It is.
Right.
I just checked.
Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning that the physical version, all the pieces are these really nice, chunky, like Bakelite pieces.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it is a joy to hold and to play just because of the satisfying little clicks and clacks of the pieces, and they
Love
have
that.
a nice weight to them. Like, it's one of those things that when you put it out on a table, it draws people to it because it just sounds and looks so appealing.
All right, so of course that was my game, but Matt, I know that you have one a little bit more in depth that you want to talk about, so why don't you bring us into Star Wars Pandemic?
Yeah, and now for something completely different. We're going to talk about Star Wars The Clone Wars, a pandemic system game, which is a mouthful of a title from our good friends at Z-Man Games. I played this, I think maybe like 2 weeks ago for the first time. I only played it once, so I don't know that I could call this a review. I'm going to say this is impressions and some thoughts, but it's probably the most fun I've had with a new game in a long time. It was just a really simple, easy to pick up game that was wonderfully thematic. It ended on a high note with the heroes victorious. It really delivered everything you want out of a co-op experience. And I walked away just re-impressed with the rule set around Pandemic. So what is this game? Well, it's basically what it sounds like. It is Pandemic Star Wars. Instead of disease spreading around the galaxy, the little droid trooper things from the Clone Wars, the battle droids, are spreading and all over different planets. And you play Jedi from the game, and you played Jedi from the Clone Wars era, and you're moving around from planet to planet, trying to clear robots from clear the droids before they cluster up and in pandemic style explode. And interestingly, in this game, when you get 3 droids on a planet and would place a 4th, they don't explode out in that pandemic style like bounce to the next adjacent planets. They form a blockade, and a trade federation outpost like forms there, which means you have to defeat that before you can then start clearing out the rest of the droids. So it basically locks down a planet. So it's a little bit, in some ways, like a little bit easier, but when the Trade Federation planet when it goes into blockade, your like terror level or threat level like descends down, and when you get down to the bottom, you lose. So you still want to stop, clear these planets out, but you don't quite have the same like clustering and like spreading around of droids the way the sickness disease cubes do.
I mean, that doesn't sound too hard. Just try spinning,
Yeah.
It's a neat trick.
Just try spinning. Is that a Star Wars reference that I'm not getting?
Yes. Yeah, it's a episode 1 reference. Weren't you?
Man, I like
sorry,
Star Wars,
no.
but I broke up with the Clone Wars era media a long time ago and don't try. I have an innate distrust of it. So it is fun when I play like stuff in this setting because I don't know what like a lot of this is, what any of it means.
That's fair. I am curious. So I do like the look of it, though. Do you were saying, is it easier then because
no,
you don't have
because
things spreading out?
No, because you have the villain moving around the board. So in our scenario, we played against Darth Maul, and so that's the X factor that's harder to deal with than just the droids. I mean, you want to be clearing out the droids, but every turn, Darth Maul is moving around the board and taking actions at the end of each hero's. And so not at the end of each round, but after every turn, Darth Maul gets a turn. And he, or whatever villain you're playing, there's several that come in the pack. And they're going to take actions that could instantly make the like threat level descend. If he does something, he can cause droids to spawn out in different places. It's bad. You can attack him directly and get him off the board for a few rounds, but then he'll respawn. But you want to get him off the board because if he's on the board in between turns, he's going to do something not great. Basically, he has his own little tracker on his card that's like his power level, and when he reaches 5, You reset his power level back to 1 and then descend the overall threat level of the game. So basically, you're constantly trying to like mitigate him gaining power, causing the whole game to get closer and closer to defeat. So I do think that the exploding mechanic being removed was probably a little bit of a balancing, because you're dealing with a villain, which is different than base Pandemic, and it's pretty hard. And you don't just clear robots, and you don't just take the action and say like, I'm clearing 3 robots. You have to roll to attack, and so you actually might not be able to get the robots cleared at any given moment. So they've done some things to balance it from like base Pandemic, but also makes it more thematic, because you're attacking, and you're attacking Darth Maul and all this stuff. The other element that makes it great is you're playing squad cards. So all throughout the game, you can acquire cards that represent like clone troopers, or assets like vehicles to help you like boost your movement, or defensive things that you can spend to like block damage, and you can spend those on your turn to exhaust those on your turn to add to an attack. So if I roll and I don't get enough damage to either like take out Darth Maul or take out these clone troopers or take out some droids on a planet, I can cash in some of my clone troopers to do that. And you can also acquire like heroes like Ahsoka, or actually I think she's one of the Jedi you can play. But anyway, like known characters from the game that have like even more like cool like special abilities. So
so are you actually playing as like various Jedi and various characters?
yeah, you'll play like I was Obi-Wan when I played. So it has Obi-Wan, Anakin. I'm pretty sure it has Ahsoka. A blue-haired, a lady with blue tentacles on her head that I didn't know who she was, but I'm sure people do.
You're thinking of the Fifth Element. That's the opera singer.
No, she was blue. She was not orange. So yes, you're playing as Jedi, and each one has asymmetric powers that you can bring into play to do cool stuff on the board. So the whole thing is awesome. It builds up to a final showdown. The basic goal of the game is to complete 4 missions that are going to be out on the board, and you need to travel to specific planets and meet certain requirements. But when all 4 missions are cleared, the boss is vulnerable. Then you got to get to where the boss is at and take the boss out, and then you win the game. And it is all the while just the threat level is plunging down lower and lower and lower. And when we played it, we won basically like at the last possible minute before Darth Maul would have been victorious, and it was awesome. And we had really great moments of like, oh, should we go deal with that planet over there? It has a lot of droids on it. And then we almost didn't, and then we did. And the fact that we made that choice is like how we ended up winning the game. Not that blue-haired lady.
No, I assume he's talking about Ayla Secura.
That's it. Ayla Secura. That's the one. So
Nerds.
It's just a really solid cooperative experience that is really simple to grasp the rules. I know I kind of glossed over the basic mechanics, but I mean, once you sit down and play it, it's really just a game of like movement, mitigating threats, and trying to work toward the collective goal. And It's Pandemic, but it was shocking how awesome that system adapted itself to Star Wars. And I sort of knew that Z-Man has been releasing all these reskinned Pandemic games with totally different themes, like a Cthulhu version. There was a World of Warcraft version that came out not too long ago. There was one that dealt with the fall of Rome. And I sort of wondered like how those games felt using the backbone of the Pandemic thing. And now I'm actually very curious and kind of want to pick up a couple more of the games in this series, because the Pandemic base like mechanic is just a remarkably smart set of rules, because it just perfectly simulates the feeling of escalating threat, having to mitigate it, having to make tough choices between threats emerging in different locations, having to work together around the group. It's really hard to completely like dominate. Every player has to like play a role to like manage all the threats. Nobody is like the individual like quarterback. Like everybody has to do something on their turn to like work together. It's just a really, really good rule set. And all these years later, Pandemic I think is still like probably the cornerstone like best cooperative rule set that's come out maybe ever.
That sounds really fun. I am curious. My one question would be visually as you play it? Because obviously there's lots of minis. The minis seem fairly diverse. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of interesting characters. But color-wise, they're either blue for the droids, and then kind of like a sandish color for the like the Jedi and the various heroes that you have. So visually, is it interesting? I've seen a lot of complaints about like the board being really uninspired, just not visually fascinating to look at. Did you have any complaints about that as you were playing?
Okay. Full disclosure. Dennis, our buddy, our good friend and fellow Dice Pirate, had painted the entire set before we played it. So they looked awesome. Wow. They were like really well done. He did a great job with it, and that added a lot, I gotta admit. So it does add to your enjoyment tremendously, like having the lightsabers be the right colors, and the droids are, have a wash on them to give them a little aged patina and all of that. So yes, I'll admit, in the base box, I've seen it too. It's pretty bad. In fact, Dennis was like, I'm not even gonna bring this over until I paint it. He's been sitting on this game for a while because he was like, it's pretty uninspired in the box. So that is a pretty serious caveat to it. Beyond that, I didn't hate other aspects of the design that some people have been griping about. I think the art on the cards is great. Like they don't like recycle like images from the Clone Wars cartoons or anything, or like do any kind of lame shortcut. Like it's all really good original art of all the characters and scenes. So I liked the cards. The board is like a spectrum of planets. It kind of is what it is. It looks like every Star Wars game looks like this. So I guess I've just kind of gotten used to it. The minis are nicely detailed. They're not huge, but they're nice. And it has a really big oversized like dice that you roll, and I liked it. It was fun to chunk out and play. So it's not the most aesthetically pleasing game that, I've played, but it didn't I don't think I would be like, unwilling to play it, like, unpainted. I think it's fine. But it's just really fun. If you like Star Wars, if you want a good Star Wars game, this is a great one to look at. If you're looking for a new co-op game that's easy to pick up for your group, I think it's worth looking. But the whole thing has just made me really reappreciate, when Matt Leacock created Pandemic and basically kind of invented like modern co-op gaming in some ways with that experience. Like, that's such a smart, malleable rule set that can be adapted to so many things. And I am very curious now to like pick up and take a look at some of the other things that Z-Man's doing, with the system. There's probably a certain amount of sameness, but I would say at this point, like if there's a theme in that lineup that like speaks to you, like the Rome one, if you like history more than the stuff, or if you're a Warcraft nerd, I think these games will really satisfy you. I mean, Pandemic is a sort of a cornerstone, and this made me appreciate it all the more.
All right, so that is the episode for today. Of course, a couple suggestions from us, especially as we get closer to the holidays. Always worth it to consider, games that you might want to put on your wish list. So, we're trying to keep your options open. Of course, want to thank everybody for listening. As always, we really do appreciate if you enjoy listening to the podcast, do consider giving us a review somewhere or a favorite, or just tell somebody about it. We always do appreciate it. It really means a lot. Matt, if people do want to get in touch with us, where can they do that?
You can find us on Instagram. We are there at Dice Pirates. We're there all week long, giving updates, mini reviews, posting about what we're playing, unboxings. Shout out to Dice Pirate Max, who's been doing some really cool reels. So you can actually see a little bit of video of us playing this exact game. If you go to our Instagram account and check out the Reels tab, you can see us in action. You can see live shots of my fingers. That's weird, but it's a thing that you can do.
Finally.
We've all been waiting for this moment. All right, well, keep your eyes peeled. Of course, we will be coming out with a new episode soon. Hopefully, not in case it doesn't happen, I don't want to give anything away, but hopefully it'll be a really interesting episode coming out soon. So fingers crossed, wait for that one. But until then, of course, we'll be right here on the Dice Pirates.
Play more games.